maybe someday it will be to the states. You never know how that's going to turn out. That's a very complex question. The Roe v. Wade is probably the one that people are talking about in terms of having an effect. But we'll see what happens. But it could very well end up with states at some point.
That's President Trump, of course, in his exclusive interview with Maria Bartiromo, saying he's not likely to ask Supreme Court nominees their position on the landmark Roe versus Wade abortions right case. During the presidential campaign, as you know, he promised that if elected, he would appoint judges who would reverse and put an end to the historic abortion ruling, leaving many concerned about what this open seat could mean for women's reproductive rights. Let's bring in former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee with us. Governor, great to see you. Do you see do you see Roe versus Wade eventually being overturned, or do you think the supporters who are the pro-choice supporters are unjustified in their fears?
Well, I have a hope that's bigger than just Roe v. Wade being overturned, because all that does is turn it back to the states. It really doesn't change the legality of abortion. It just means that that decision would be left at the states, which, frankly, Eric, is where it should have been anyway, since there's no mention of abortion or women's reproductive rights in the Constitution, which is the limitation of the federal government. But what really needs to happen is a discussion on personhood, because the question is not, is abortion okay or not okay? The question is the unborn child a person, and if it's so, at what point? Because if that's the case, then that person, the unborn child, has Fifth and 14th Amendment rights that should be invoked. That person is entitled to due process before he or she loses life or liberty, which is no longer the case in America. They are terminated in life and liberty by the single decision of the birth mother, and that's not protecting the rights of those persons.
Well, Governor, the press secretary, your daughter, was on Fox and Friends earlier this morning, and she was asked, what exactly is the president looking for in his Supreme Court pick? And here's how she responded.
Look, the main thing the president is looking for are people that fit the qualifications that you would want in a Supreme Court justice. Tremendous intellect, someone who will stick to upholding the Constitution, and somebody who has great judicial temperament. Those are the big things the president is looking for in a candidate.
He's got a big job to do, and Governor, as we know, he is currently conducting those interviews at the White House.
Well, that's a very smart young lady you just had on, and I think she's spot on when it comes to determining what the president should do. I tell people all the time, I'm not interested in the president appointing a conservative justice, because I don't want the person to be ideological. I want him to be a constitutionalist, somebody who is pure to the original words and text of the Constitution. If a person comes with an ideological bent, liberal or conservative, then they're really going to be looking at things as if to legislate from the courts. We have a legislative body. It's called Congress. The judicial branch has no right whatsoever under the Constitution to legislate anything, to originate a law, and we need somebody who will be a purist when it comes to the Constitution. I hope the president sticks to that. I think he will. I think the names that are on his list are people who are committed to that.
Who jumps out at you? You've got Tom Hardiman, Raymond Kethledge, Kavanaugh, of course, Amy Coney Barrett. Lots been said about her, and he apparently is interviewing her today.
Well, I think all the people on the list have great potential and possibilities. I like Amy Coney Barrett as a potential nominee. I think she would be terrific. You know, my feeling is that any one of these people, they've already been vetted and thought through by their experience on the bench, by their writings. I think any of them could stand up to pretty much anything, except the fact we have to accept that the Democrats are going to oppose any person that the president puts forward. And whoever puts forward, I do not envy them going into that lion's den. I think they need to go into that hearing room with a pistol, a chair, and a whip, because they're going to need it when they're facing those Democrats on the Judiciary Committee.
Well, the press secretary also confirmed this morning, big news, that Mike Pompeo, the president's Secretary of State, will be on a plane Thursday, the day after the holiday, on his way to Pyongyang to meet with North Korea. What is the goal of the White House here? This is going to be the third trip for Mike Pompeo to that region.
I don't have any inside information, so I'm just speaking from what I believe is happening based on what the president told me when I interviewed him for a television show just a week ago. And here's what I think is happening. The president's going to make it very clear through Mike Pompeo to the North Koreans, you said you were going to denuclearize. Now, either you're going to do it or you're not. And if you're not going to do it voluntarily, we're going to do it for you. And I think it's going to be a very stern and a very serious message that this is not a game. We're not the Obama administration. We're not the Clintons. We're not the Bushes. This is an administration that is fully prepared to do whatever it takes to keep that peninsula safe. And it can never be safe. It can never be stable as long as North Korea is developing nuclear weapons. And I think that's exactly what the Secretary of State is going to be saying to Kim Jong-un.
And what if there is no timetable? Kim Jong-un does not provide a timetable or the locations of their facilities or information on ballistic missiles. What do we do then?
Then I think Secretary of State Pompeo gifts him an Apple Watch and tells him that the time is ticking, and before the battery on that watch runs out, he'd better have things underway, because we're not going to be patient forever. We're not going to let this extend into the term of another president in another 6.5 years. So if he's serious about it, better get about it. If he's not, then better buckle up and get ready. There's going to be some probably serious repercussions, including military repercussions.
And do you think Kim Jong-un is good for his word? We've been down this road before.
I don't know that he is. You know, I don't have the trust for him, maybe that the president says he does. But here's what I know. If he's as smart as the president believes him to be, if he's that perceptive, then he's going to pick up on the fact that this is a president who is not afraid to do what he says. I mean, one thing about Donald Trump that even his enemies would have to accept, he's a person that ends up doing what he promised he would do, whether it's moving the embassy to Jerusalem, whether it's tax cuts, whether it's enforcing the border. This is a president who, when he says something, he ends up doing it. I think that's the biggest shock to the political world. He's not kidding. And maybe they're getting that message.
You know, he works so fast. I said that he's interviewing Amy Coney Barrett today. No, he already interviewed her on Monday. I'm ahead of myself. So he's already, the president's already way out ahead of us.
He's got more interviews on his plate this week. I'll end with this. The president tweeting a lot, quite frankly, this morning on North Korea. He talks about the many good conversations that he's having with North Korea going well. Meantime, rocket launches or no rocket launches or nuclear testing in 8 months. All of Asia, he says, is thrilled. Governor, only the opposition party, which includes the fake news, is complaining. If not for me, we would now be at war with North Korea. Are we a long way from where we were just several months ago before the summit ever took place?
Well, we clearly are. I mean, you know, it's not the rocket's red glare going on over the peninsula right now, and that's a positive step. But we're not where we need to be, and I think that's the message that the Secretary of State is going to be conveying when he gets there and faces Kim Jong-un personally. But yes, we're better off. I mean, just having conversation is better off, and getting some concessions. Now they have to live up to it, or I think that they will, let's just put it this way, they will have hell to pay if they don't.
Governor, one quick question. Are those Sarah's babies pictures over there, over your right shoulder? Or their grandchildren?
Some of them are Sarah's babies pictures. Some of them are my son's babies pictures. I can tell you that my house and my office is filled with pictures of 6 grandkids who happen to be, objectively speaking, the most beautiful grandchildren in the world.
Yes, of course.
No bias there. Oh, Governor Huckabee, great to have you in the program this morning.